Hi guys, welcome to MS Power Automate. In today's video, we'll be going through what variables are in Microsoft Power Automate Desktop. If you are new to this application and you do not have a programming background, a huge obstacle you will face is to fully understand various terms that you will encounter frequently. A very common term used in Microsoft Power Automate Desktop is none other than variables. So hopefully at the end of this video, you will have a fuller understanding of how to handle variables, which will ensure a smoother process while developing your flows in future. So what are variables? In short, variables allow you to store information or data from one action and then to use it in another action when you need to. Variables are like labels that you attach to your data with a descriptive name of your choice, which you can easily refer back to when needed. So you're probably wondering what I meant by use this data later. Because while automating your tasks on Microsoft Power Automate Desktop, you will see yourself using the same information or data over and over again for different actions. For example, you might need to store some retrieve emails, which is one action, and then process them later in your flow, and this would be another action. So you can think of variables as storage containers that save important information while a flow is running. The stored information can be any type such as numbers, text, dates, files, and folders. So I've opened my Microsoft Power Automate Desktop, and to give you guys an example, I've deployed my display message action. So you can see this sign over here, and when you hover over it, it says select variable. And when you click on it, it will just show you all the variables that you have created for this particular flow. In my screen, it looks slightly complicated as I've created many variables for this flow. But if you have yet to create any, then it will just be empty. So to select and to choose that particular variable, just hover over it like this and double click. And you should see it over here. But don't worry if you don't understand what's going on my screen, as I'm just showing you guys how to select a variable. So next, how do you create and use variables? To use variables and actions, the name of your variables has to be enclosed in percentage characters. For example, over here, I have a variable called client name. And the proper way to express it is to enclose it in percentage characters like this over here. If the percentage sign is excluded, the application will read the value as a hard-coded with a content instead. Microsoft Power Automate Desktop will create your variables automatically that the deployed actions require. This is to avoid creation of any non-essential variables. However, you are able to create the variables manually and disable automatically produce variables as well. So how will you identify these variables? So Microsoft Power Automate Desktop will automatically produce variables that hold the results of the actions whenever you add a new action to your main workspace. So I'm just going to give you guys a very quick and simple example. So over here, I'm going to set a variable. So this blue text over here is the default variable name that the application produces for you. And you can simply change it by double clicking on it and changing it to whatever you like. So I'll be changing it to client name. So do take note over here that I did not enclose the variable name with the percentage sign. This is because Microsoft Power Automate Desktop automatically produces it for you because they identify it as a variable. So once I'm done with that, I'll click enter. So I've renamed the variable. So I'm going to set the variable to something simple. So I'll just put John and click save. So next I'm going to deploy another action called change text case. So change text case is a very simple action. It basically changes the casing of the text to uppercase, lowercase, title case, or sentence case. So in Microsoft Power Automate Desktop, it is very common to reuse the content from your previous actions and input it into other actions. So over here in text to convert, I would like to reuse the content previously in my set variable action. And to do that, click on the select variable sign over here. And it will show you all of the variables that you have created in this flow. So I am going to click on client name. And for the convert to, I will want to convert it all to uppercase. So over here in this blue text here, it is likewise the variable that is automatically produced by the application. So it says text with new case. However, I would like to change it to a name that is easier for me to identify to use for the flow later. So I am going to change it to client name uppercase. And then press enter. And you have changed the variable name. So to disable variables that you are not using, simply click on the toggle switch icon to disable that particular variable. So over here you see the icon, just click on it. And when the text changes to grey, it means that you have successfully disabled the variable. The reason for this is to allow your variables pane to look more organized and less convoluted. Overall, it makes it easier and more efficient to control your flows. You can also use existing variables as outputs in actions, but the platform will override their previous content. This is not recommended as it may confuse you. Instead, you should always try to use new variables for all the different results that you have. So now I'll be touching on the variables pane. So the variables pane is located on the right hand side of the flow designer. It displays all the created variables with additional information and controls to manage all of your variables. And there are two different forms of variables located in the variables pane to allow you to manage all of them. So it will be the input and output variables and flow variables. So more on input and output variables. With this, you can move data from other platforms to Microsoft Power Automate Desktop, as well as from Power Automate Desktop to other platforms. This feature is great as it allows you to have many automation options for you to automate your tasks in future. But this is just a brief definition of input and output variables. We will go more in depth in future videos, so remember to subscribe to our channel. Alright, onto the flow variables. Basically, there are a list of all the variables that are available in the particular flow. This includes all the variables in the main and subflows. It does not include variables from the other flows in your console. While you are trying to debug your flows after you have run the entire flow or when you use the Run Next Action button, you can check each variable's current value through the variables pane. So what I mean by this is that, for example, when I run this flow, you'll see the variable's current value pop out over here, or when you double click, it will also show you the variable's current value. So seeing how the flow changes the variable's content in real time allows you to locate the source of unwanted functionality, which results in helping you debug your flows. To view more information or rename variables in the variables pane, just simply right-click on the name of the variables or click on the vertical ellipsis over here. So you can either click on this or right-click on the variable. It will show you three options. You can either view, rename, or find usages. So when you click on view, it will just give you the variable value, and rename is for you to rename the variable. And for find usages, it gives you additional information that will be displayed regarding that particular variable. So when I click on it, they will show you which subflows it belongs to, which line or lines it belongs to, and more information about the action it is situated in. And when you double click on one of the results, it will direct you to the specific line that the variable is input in. So for example, I double click on this, and the first line will be highlighted. If you have developed a very complicated flow with many variables, you are able to filter out the variables. For example, based on text value, date time, list of general values, general value, or numeric value. This is so to allow you to be more efficient when developing your flows. Alright, on to the data types. So Microsoft Power Automate Desktop will categorize your variables to a specific variable data type based on the content. There are over 40 data types on this application, but the more common data types are numbers, time, and boolean. But these are the more basic data types. There are the more advanced type, which will require special treatment and handling, but this we will go through later. Some of the built-in data types have properties that are associated with the values stored in the variables. Through the properties, you can access information about the variables without the need for additional actions or complicated conversions. This information can describe the content of the variable or be a part of the multi-component content. For example, you can get the date part of a date or the size of a list with files. So for example, over here, I have deployed an action called getCurrentDate and time. So a property of current date and time will be the day of the week. So when you want to access the value of a property, you can use this following notation. So basically first, it will be the variable name, followed by a full stop, and followed by the property name, in which this case is the day of the week. So it looks confusing and you might not know the exact notation for it, but don't worry, all you have to do is to go to select variables here, click on it. For my variable name is current date time, so I'll type current. You can see this arrow over here, click on it, and it will give you all the property options. So for current date time, you have year, month, day, day of the week, etc. So every time you see this arrow over here, you can just click on it to view more options. Alright, on to advanced data types. Advanced data types need specific treatment and handling, and in this video we'll go through two advanced data types, list and data tables. A list is a collection of items that must be of the same data type. Use a list when you want to store and collate many information of the same data type. For example, you can create a list of text values, numbers, files, and etc. So to create a new list, go to the search bar over here and type create. So by default, the variable's name is called list, and you can change it, and I'll change it to fruit list. And if you want to add items to the list, just add the action add item to list. So for example, I will add the item apples. So I want to add the items apples into the new fruit list that we have created over here. You can also create a list through actions that generate list as output. As certain actions will develop a list, such as the get files in folder action that returns a file list. If you want to retrieve a specific item on a list, you can use the following notation. For example, you can rename the first folder of the previously displayed folder list using the following action. Keep in mind that the item number should always be 0 for the first item of the list. So if you're looking for the first file in the list, the item number is 0. If you're looking for the second item number should be 1, and so on and so forth. So now on to data tables. So you use data tables if you want to store data in a table form. It is similar to Excel. A data table has both rows and columns. To retrieve a specific data, use a specific row and column. You can look at data tables as a list that has other lists as items. However, you will not be able to create data tables like how you did with lists earlier on. You must use actions like read from Excel and the execute SQL statement actions. So if you want to retrieve a specific data table item, you can use the following notation. Firstly, the variable name, square bracket row number, and square bracket column number. This may look intimidating, but let me give you guys an example. So I've opened my Excel sheet and I've created a simple table with fruits and its price. Next, I'll open my Microsoft Power Automate desktop. So now I'll be launching Excel. So I'll type launch. Over here, there's a launch Excel action, and I'll add it to my workspace. So over here, I'll click on open the following document. This is because I want to launch the file that I've just created with fruits and its prices. So I'll be looking for it now. And the variables produced from this action is Excel instance. So if you hover over it, it will give you an explanation. The specific Excel instance for use with later Excel actions. This allows the user to specify which Excel spreadsheet to access. So I'll click on save. After launching Excel, I will want to read the document. So over on the actions, I'll type read. And over here, there's an action called read from Excel worksheet. I'll add it to my workspace. And by default, it will add the Excel instance variable over here. So for me, I will want to read all the data in the Excel worksheet. So I'll click on values from a range of cells. So over here we have start column, start row, end column, and end row. So as you can tell from our Excel sheet, we are starting from column A, row 1, to B3, to column B, row 3. And the variables produced from this is Excel data. So I'm going to click save. So next, for example, you can save Apple's price inside a new variable using the following action. Keep in mind that the row number and the column number should be 0 for the first item. So now I want to set a variable for the price of the apples. So I'm going to type set variable. I've added the action set variable to my workspace, and now I want to change the variable name to apple price. As you can see here, the type for the variable Excel data is data table. So you have successfully created a data table. But since now I want a specific data from the data table, I'm going to click on it and add the square bracket. So over here in my Excel sheet, I will want to know what is the value in B1 over here. So like I said earlier, the index always starts from 0 in the data table. So the overall notation will be variable name square bracket 0 square bracket 1. Now click save. So I'll run the flow here and see what values I'll get. So over here at the variables pane, you can see that they have stated that the apple's price is 2, which is correct according to our Excel worksheet that we have created. So overall, do take note that list and data table always starts from 0 index. Alright, so now on to variable manipulation. So earlier in the video, we learned that it's important to enclose your variables with percentage signs so that the app can identify it as a variable. So some of you might wonder, what if I want to use the percentage sign as a simple character in a hard-coded text? Well, all you have to do is to use the double percentage sign like this. On to hard-coded text. So you might want to use hard-coded text values in your expressions. Use quotes to do that. The application will identify any value between the quote characters as a text value and not a variable name. And if you want to use multiple variables in an expression, you can add their names to the expression without further notation. You might also want to use mathematical operations. So you are able to use the plus, subtract, times, and divide. Except for arithmetic operations with numerical values and variables, you can also use the addition operator to link or join strings. Adding numbers and text strings in the same expression will convert the numbers into text and join them with the other text strings. Besides arithmetic operators, you can also make comparisons using the following relational operators. So next, on to logical operators. In many flows, you might need to check if a value meets some particular standards. To check conditions and implement more complex logic in a single expression, you can use the logical operators. The supported operators are AND and OR. While creating complex expressions, you might want to prioritize some specific parts of them. To change an operator's priority, use parentheses. Microsoft Power Automate Desktop handles parentheses the same way as algebra and programming languages. So that's it for our video on how to handle variables. Do remember to subscribe to our channel for more frequent updates on Microsoft Power Automate Desktop. Thank you.